Okay, so our next speaker is Gregory Armstrong, and Greg served as a chaplain at CGMH, as well as a chaplain for the Toronto Paramedic Services, Springwater Fire and Emergency Services, RVH On-Call Team, and the Tema Contra Memorial Trust. He's had extensive background as a former paramedic, as well as serving as a pastor with 3 different congregations in Simcoe County. He served internationally in Honduras, Mexico, Guatemala, and Jamaica, as well as at Ground Zero in the days following the attacks on the World Trade Center. But today, Greg comes to us as a patient, and so I'd like to invite him to the stage to share his story.
Thank you, Dr. Lisi. Kind of a weird thing to say. I'm glad to be with you today, especially because I'm sharing my story and on a topic that we've been talking a lot about. There weren't a lot of parameters given about just what to share, so I'll start by telling you a little bit about me more than what Dr. Lisi shared in that brief introduction. I'm 56 years old. I do work here at CGMH. I've been here for about 3 years as their chaplain and about 12 connected to the on-call team. I'm happily married, have been for 28 years to my wife Nancy, who is an RN at RVH. We have 3 kids, 2 adult children, Noah, who's a paramedic here in Simcoe County, and our daughter Sarah, who's in her 3rd year of university at York in the KIN program, and we have another daughter, Leah, who left 15 years ago and is waiting for us there. We love life. In the summertime, we enjoy sailing, and that's what we're looking forward to. Our boat's in the slip. We haven't been off the slip since it went in because of our lovely Ontario weather. But we're looking forward to that, and we do some diving. And life was traveling along great. And all of a sudden, things kind of went a little bit sideways. A year ago this month, as a result of journeying through some situations, some ailments, and some challenges because of my former life experiences, both as a medic, my time in New York, and even some of the things that I've seen and done as a pastor and as a chaplain. I was trying to deal with some of those things with my family doc, symptomatic and symptoms of occupational stress injuries and PTSD, that we did some blood screening and did some other blood work. And I heard back from my family doc the next month in July that everything was looking great. All functions were looking great, but then he did mention right at the end of the conversation that my PSA was up a bit. And so when he told me that, I asked him what the number was, and I think it was 4 point something or maybe 5 point something, and he said, I'm not overly concerned, up a point a year, something like that. And he said, we'll maybe look at it in 6 months. And I said, no, I think we'll look at it now. I had a history of prostatitis, had been hospitalized twice as a result of that prior to, and so he connected me with a specialist that I had seen in the past. And very, very thankfully, in very short order, I was in that specialist's office. And he said to me, based on my age and that number, that he was concerned and that he wanted to investigate. He said that he was going to do a digital exam. And I thought, high tech's great. But it was anything but. And so anyways, he revealed to me after that he was pretty confident that there was something going on and I probably had a 50% chance of cancer. On October 1st, I had a biopsy done at RVH and was given the results 4 days later on Friday of the Thanksgiving weekend. That Friday evening, our family doc contacted us and said that the Gleason score, which scores out of 10, was at 9. And that this was a highly aggressive form of cancer and that we needed to get on top of things. Also that there was a likelihood, because of the Gleason score, that there was METs. And so through a number of different tests and evaluations and blood work and scans, we discovered that in fact, yes, the cancer was there and there was a MET, a single MET on my left scap. And under the excellent care of a doctor who's with us today, thank you, Dr. Stevens, I began radiation therapy just at the end of November and finished 4 days before Christmas. And so that radiation involved prostate radiation and 5 days of radiation to the left scap. Through that, felt a lot of fatigue. I was very, very blessed otherwise not to have had a lot of the other potential side effects and was able to function fairly well despite just the tiredness. And so moved on through life, enjoyed Christmas, and had a great time. We had plans for a southern trip to the Keys for a month. And our plan was to go diving quite a bit when we were down there. And I had an appointment with my oncologist the day before we left. And the hope was that I would get a glowing report after all that radiation, pun intended. So anyways, what happened was that that wasn't necessarily the case, and what they discovered with the following bone scans and CT was that there was further mets to the spine, L1, T8, pelvis, and some rib involvement as well. And so we had to be looking at that. We said, well, can we still head off? And the instruction was kind of, yeah, by all means do so. And kind of said like that, and I thought, okay, I'm reading between the lines here. Let's go have a blast, and we'll come back and see what happens. So while we were away, we enjoyed every minute of that, as I have been ever since October, enjoying every minute of life. We got down there. We were able to do 10 dives. I'm not sure if that was to your chagrin or not, but it was awesome. And we encountered all sorts of creatures. We enjoyed the sun. Our son was down with us for a week of that time, and we came home. And on our return, again, 2 days later, back to RVH, and was referred then by Dr. Stevens to Dr. Help me out, Russell, thank you. And as we met him, we looked at that, and he asked if perhaps I'd be interested in being part of a clinical trial. So I said yes. We traveled down to Sunnybrook and spoke to the team down there, and they said, well, you may be willing to be a part of this, but we have to make sure that you're a candidate for this. And so there's all sorts of other testing that we have to do, more scans. I feel like a new comic book hero, scan man, with a MUGA scan and a CT scan and bone scans, and all these scans are going on, all the blood work's happening. And so indeed they said that yes, they thought that I would be a candidate for this trial. It was supposed to have started about 2 weeks ago. And on the Wednesday, I received a phone call from Sunnybrook to say that they wanted just to give me a heads up. I wasn't able to answer the call. I was here working, and so they left a brief message saying that we just wanted to give you a heads up before you come down here tomorrow because we're not sure that you're going to qualify, and it's based on your CT scans. And so you can imagine some of the things that would have gone through my mind. But when I called, the message was that actually the bone scan was not showing some of the things that had been seen before. And in fact, they had to have a number of radiologists look at my CT scans to compare them back to October even, to see if I was, quote, sick enough to be a part of the trial at this point. So I'm not sure where you're at with things, but my strategy in my journey is very much based on my faith, which is my glue, which is also my compass and my anchor, and has proven itself over and over in my life. And went down. They weren't sure if they wanted me just to have some blood work done here and send it down, especially with the PSA, because my PSA hadn't climbed enough to qualify for the study either. Although the trajectory from October and from post-ADT therapy was that it was going up, but when it's a minuscule number, it's exponential, even if it's still small. But they saw that it was moving that direction. And so I went down to Sunnybrook, and they were, in fact, able to put me on the trial. So I did start the trial just a couple of weeks ago. So it's doing the abiraterone therapy, which is what I would have received at RVH, as well as a trial drug, getting all the names mixed up, but olaparib. So the ABI is something that's supposed to kill testosterone production at an adrenal level because the androgen deprivation therapy did not, so it's considered castrate-resistant metastatic prostate cancer. And so this is the journey that I'm on. And I remain very, very hopeful. In the work that I do in this hospital and have done most of my life, as a medic, as a minister, as a chaplain, I've been exposed throughout my life to the fact that life is fragile and goes sideways very, very quickly. And that not one of us in this room is promised, our next breath, never mind our next day. We don't know if we're going to make it to the next traffic light today when we leave. And so my approach is to live every day to the fullest, to the max, to enjoy that, to enjoy my family. Even just yesterday morning, I took the day off. I was having coffee on my back deck, and it was like I was experiencing my backyard brand new and anew, to see the trees, the leaves, the birds, and just everything about it. And so I don't know what the future holds. I certainly know who holds it. And so I'm going with that. And very, very thankful for those that are part of this, who have invested their lives in being in cancer, which I have to be honest with you and confess that prior to this diagnosis was a crippling fear of mine. As I was exposed to people in the hospital as a chaplain, certainly as a pastor, and even as a paramedic transporting people back in the day, back to Princess Margaret, and from sick kids back and forth to Princess Margaret, I often thought, what would happen if I ever received that news? What would happen? And I just kind of assumed that I would roll up in a ball, wave the white flag, and give up. And it has been anything but that. It's been a fight, and I continue to fight, and I have promised my family that I will continue to fight. Certainly there's been some difficulties along the way. Sharing this news with family was probably the most difficult. Our daughter, as I said, was at York University. She's away from home. Didn't want to just drop that news on her and leave her by herself to contend with that. So we carefully kind of mapped out a plan to share the news with her. My son heard it kind of by mistake as he brought a patient into the hospital at RVH one night. My wife was down there because she wasn't feeling so great. She was having some issues, and I think a lot of it was stress-related because of the diagnosis. That has been probably the most difficult part of the journey. But I share with you that in sharing that news with them, we also share something very important, and that is our faith walk and our trust in God. And so that has brought us great comfort and great hope in whatever the future brings. And so I'm onward and upward. As you can imagine, it posed some serious concerns for me to do the work that I do here in this hospital, especially visiting patients that were on similar journeys, and so I had to kind of back away from that for a while. Since the new year, I've slowly transitioned back into entering rooms and doing cold calls with patients that have similar diagnosis. And it's interesting and it's amazing, really, that just recently, actually, as of 2 weeks ago, talked to a gentleman, and when I was finished speaking to him, he kind of had that look on his face like, well, yeah, whatever. You know, that's kind of what you're supposed to say. You're the chaplain. That's what I expect you to say. And I said to him, sir, if I can, I'd just like to share something with you. But I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm on a similar path. It can only ever at best be similar. It can never be the same. But I can relate in some way to what you're going through. And I want you to know that what I'm telling you and what I'm sharing with you from the heart, and as someone who's on the path and who's on the same journey. And it made all the difference in his life. There was another patient that I had to deal with recently who's now gone, and who was seeking just some understanding about what might be next. Born of a Jewish faith but not practicing, was a professed atheist all her life, but at this stage of the game wanted to know, what the possibilities looked like. And I know that in being able to share with her, and then again, not intentionally, this would not be my normal path of patient-client dealings, but shared a little bit of that journey, and I know that it brought comfort. And so I'm thankful. I would never have said that, but I'm thankful that I'm on this path, because it helps me to do the work that I'm doing. And I can do so with maybe a little bit more credibility now than I could have before in speaking to people that are on a cancer journey. I would never have asked for this. I'm not necessarily happy about it per se, but at the same time, it's being used. And I do believe that God will not allow a hurt to go unused, or a pain, or a trial, or a journey. And so that's part of my story. I've had excellent support here from the CGMH family and staff. When certain of those members learned this, it was like, whatever we can do to help you. The friendship here is amazing. When we speak about family at this hospital, it has some traction. It means something. It's not lip service. It's not a cute or slick hashtag. It is the real deal here, and I'm thankful for that. I have people praying for me from Africa to Austria to the States and here, and I have felt that power of prayer in my life. And so, I'm thankful for the opportunity to share my story with you. If you have questions, I want to speak to Dr. Mack at some point and see if any of those wonderful things that he's doing might work in my situation. I have no idea, but he was an awesome speaker and certainly was encouraging to me. I hope that there's maybe some encouragement to you that, I'm trying to do living with cancer instead of waiting on cancer to take whatever toll it thinks it's going to have on me. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We have no idea. I know now that I have cancer. It's in my body, but I still have life. I still have breath, and I still have a pulse, and so I'm going to do what I need to do to max it out. And people have kind of wondered why I'm still here and working when this is the story, but this is where I want to be. This is where I need to be, and I will take time. to do those things that I need to do as well with family. But it's an interesting ride, and life is an interesting ride, folks, so buckle up. And I would encourage you to do it with faith, with family, with friends, and with an urgent desire to fight for what it is that we're looking forward to. There's a Latin expression that says, non nobis solum nati sumus, which means that not for ourselves alone are we born. And so we have this life, it's a gift from God, it's up to us to live it well. But also in the living, to maybe share some of what we have and what we're going through with others that may benefit them. And even being part of a clinical trial perhaps might be that. It might not be something that benefits me, but maybe down the line. As I debated whether I was going to do this and have the hassle of traveling back and forth to Toronto with the freaking frustrating 400, I thought, you know what? Yeah, it might be worth it. It might be worth it. And I didn't want to play the coulda, woulda, shoulda game, that maybe it would have done something, and so I'm not. And that's my story. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you. Thank you for all the work that you do, especially in this field. And those of you that work in hospice settings, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do oncology for a living. I really don't. But I thank you and I salute you, and thank you from a patient's perspective. God bless you, folks. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing your story.